Good evening and welcome to Global Harmony House, our Thursday night insights. We're glad you have joined us and excited to share the evening's program. And to do that, I would like to invite Sister Michelle, if you could come on and join.
Yes, yes, thank you, Brother Eric. I am here. Welcome, everyone, to our continuing Thursday night conversations. I'm delighted to be here once again. And the month of October, we continue our discussions about creating nurturing space. And that's very important, especially now, as many of us are isolated or not seeing our usual friends and family. We need to create nurturing spaces for ourselves. Tonight's our evening discussion is the importance of appreciation and encouragement, another vital program. We have two wonderful speakers. We have Shvetank, I hope I pronounced it right, Shvetank and Merrillyn, and they're going to have a conversation together. They bring special skills. Both of them, I would say, are healthcare practitioners. And with the spiritual component, I'm going to tell you something, Marilyn, that most people don't know about me. But let's talk a little bit about the subject tonight. It's just asking a basic question. How do you feel when you're appreciated and respected? When you are given encouragement and assurance for a task, we feel supported, confident, and hopeful. And as a result, we do a better job. So that's the discussion tonight. And I want you to put your questions in the chat room. At the end, we will ask our presenters your questions and comments. So let's begin with the bios. We'll begin first with Shvetank Agarwal, who is a physician, a doctor, a cardiac anesthesiologist at Augusta University in South Carolina. He has practiced Raja Yoga meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for over 20 years. He's traveled the US, India, and Europe, and has lectured on meditation, healing, and stress management, and co-facilitates spiritual retreats for healthcare professionals at Peace Village. And a mention of Peace Village, when we're able to go back, please take advantage of it. It is a wonderful place, and there are a number of virtual retreats going on there. And if you visit Peace Village website, you will see them. He, with his wife, Kanithcha, a PhD, are co-founders of the Global Institute for Mind-Body Wellness. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you for being here. And next we have...
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Marilyn Henner, who is a physical therapist. And people don't know this, Marilyn. I'm a physical therapist too, although I haven't practiced in 20 years, but I'm a licensed physical therapist before I became involved in spirituality. But I did bring a spiritual component unbeknownst to me when I was a therapist. I was a wound care specialist. So a little bit different, but I'm so interested. I'm delighted that you're here. She is also a certified integrative manual therapist. And she blends that hands-on technique with traditional physical therapy. Like the doctor, she practices and teaches Raja Yoga meditation since 2007 and enjoys conducting classes and workshop and retreats for Brahma Kumaris meditation, health and healing, and self-empowerment. Welcome, Merrillyn, and thank you both for being here. And I'm turning over the floor to you. I'm very interested. We're all interested in your conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate the introduction, and I look forward to this conversation as well. It's a great feeling to be connected to the main center of the United States, the headquarters, Global Harmony House. And it's just seeing that picture of that big light. It's such a beautiful feeling that I'm having right now, almost nostalgic, remembering those days when I was able to visit that center. But I'm sure as the COVID-19 situation improves, we'll be able to visit that. And I'm so excited to be with Merrillyn in this conversation. Yeah, I feel this topic is very important. It's very near and dear to me. I feel that people everywhere, everybody on this earth is looking for some sort of appreciation, some sort of recognition. It's almost like an innate need of the soul. Like, you have needs for the body, like food and water and clothing and shelter and so on and so forth. But for the soul, just like love and gratitude, appreciation. These are the innate desires, innate needs of the soul. And there's a lot to talk about. So I think it's a great, Merrillyn, we should get on it, I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
let's keep going.
Yeah.
Definitely. Om Shanti, everyone. And it's nice to be here. Thank you, Michelle, for that lovely introduction. And I was just thinking, yes, it was sort of nostalgic to see the stage in Harmony House and think of all the times there. And also just in appreciation of these opportunities through Zoom to actually be together, even though we can't physically be together, we can create that same experience and feeling through Zoom and through this sharing. So what a wonderful opportunity. So we can all imagine that we're in that energy, that little cocoon that the Brahma Kumaris are so good at creating in their spaces. So we can be together in that during this Zoom talk as well. And it's nice to be with you again, Shvetank. We were just together this weekend for a Hope and Healthcare retreat. And actually, the title of that retreat was An Attitude That Heals. And I was thinking about how encouragement and appreciation are part of that attitude that heals. And as a physical therapist, I feel like I've sort of become a master encourager because, for my clients, if I'm not encouraging them in some way, they get disheartened, especially if, they have a long road of recovery ahead of them, or if they've been suffering with pain for a long period of time. They really need, during the darkest time, someone to get up and say, no, you are moving forward. You're doing well. Here's what's changed. Here's what's good and how you are right now. And I was just thinking of one particular patient that I treated a few years ago. Actually, I work a lot with amputees. I'm the one in my office who works with amputees. And this woman was a double amputee above the knee. So, when you take away the knee joint, it makes life much harder with a prosthesis. And now you have two prostheses. And she was, not very strong and had a lot of other comorbidities and things. And she would come every week to try to learn how to use these prostheses. And one day she was sitting at the end of the parallel bars and she had them both on and she just looked so exhausted. And she said, Marilyn, I don't think I can do it today. I just don't think I can do it today. I'm too tired. This is too hard. It's not worth it for me today. And I remembered in our spiritual class in the morning. So every day in Brahma Kumaris, we have our Merrillyn class, our morning class. And the image that was left for me from that class was putting on the belt of determination. The topic was about determination and how determination takes us through the dark times. And if we have a goal, we need to hold on to our determination. So I just shared that image with her. She knows nothing about Raj Yoga. She's not particularly, a spiritual person, but as we're putting on the gate belt, we have this belt we put around the waist of our patients so we can work with them safely. I said, okay, you're putting on the belt of determination. This is your belt of determination. You're going to do it today. You're going to walk the whole length of the bars. And she just started laughing and she just loved that image so much that she stood up and she walked the whole length of the bars. And she was so proud of herself. And for weeks after that, where's my belt of determination? I got to put on my belt of determination. So it's like one small image or sharing that can bring light into a dark situation can really make us work harder and feel uplifted and feel like, yes, I can do it. I'm not alone. Someone is with me. So appreciating what you were saying about the love of this topic, because, we, in order to create a sacred and healing space for ourselves, we need that kind of energy around us. We either need to be appreciated or we need to do the appreciating and do the encouraging. And actually both are equally uplifting. If you really think about it, when I do the encouraging, I feel uplifted myself. When someone appreciates or encourages me, I also feel uplifted. So it's this beautiful exchange of positive energy. So I just wanted to share that, one example of how that attitude of appreciation and encouragement is so important for us to keep our spirits high when things are challenging.
Yes, so true. It is important to appreciate talking about appreciation.
Yes, it creates a feeling.
Yeah. And I think, in a way, I like how you put it together in a way that on one hand, we have to figure out for ourselves, because of this innate need of the soul, of the spirit to be appreciated, that how do I fix this need for myself, but also how do I fix that need for others?
Yes.
And So whether we want to call this as appreciation or recognition or encouragement or gratitude, somewhere, somehow I have to be able to recognize the other soul. And by recognition, the word recognition, I don't mean to say like refer to accolades or something that a person has done, but really what the person is, or who the person is, just where the person is coming from, and so on and so forth, appreciating that. And I was thinking that, truly speaking, I cannot be appreciative of the other person unless I was looking at three things that are very important. And we can talk about the first one and then go on to the others if we have time. But the first one I was thinking was that I cannot be appreciative of the other person unless I'm creating appreciation inside myself. In other words, I cannot fake it. Yeah, I think you're a great person. In many times it happens that somebody may have done something not so good and doesn't really need that much of praise or accolades, and we sometimes are not able to understand how to handle that situation. And so in those moments too, everybody needs that appreciation and recognition of who they are. And so I cannot do that, I cannot give it to the other person unless I somewhere am experiencing that feeling, that quality of appreciation. And here I was thinking that, there in positive psychology, there are two terms that are used. One is called a state of the quality, and the other is trait. So state versus trait, what it really means is that, state is a temporary situation, that something happens, something somebody does, and then we have appreciation for that person. Yeah, or for that situation, or for whatever, for ourselves, for God, for whoever. On the other hand, trait appreciation, or trait gratitude, or trait respect, or trait kindness really means that we are that almost like 24/7. That's our natural state of being, and that's what we have to create. Because on one hand, if you look at this entire spectrum of appreciation, on one hand, we could be we know people, and sometimes we have been in that state too, where a lot of great things are happening in our lives, but we have not been able to process them, and we don't feel appreciative of them. And we see people around, the biggest things, the greatest things may happen to them, and they don't feel appreciative. On the other hand, the other side of the spectrum could be people who are appreciative of even the worst situations that have come to their lives. Even when they break their bones, even if they end up in bankruptcy, even if they lose a family member, even then, even in those most extraneous situations, they're able to experience appreciation and gratitude and that good feeling in their hearts. So unless I somehow work through the spectrum from this side across to this side, to the trait gratitude, the trait appreciation, I cannot really give
Mhm.
appreciation and thank others or recognize others really for who they are. Right? What do you think, Merrillyn, about this?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're trying to be appreciative and encouraging from a place of emptiness, and lack of appreciation for your own life and everything that's happening with you, then it becomes almost an empty congratulations. Like there's not like the feeling or the energy behind it. We don't realize how much power and energy our thoughts and our words have. And if they're in alignment and we are feeling that and then we're sharing, it has so much more of an impact. If I had just, if I go back to the example of my patient, the amputee with the belt,
Right.
if I had just come to her with that gait belt and say, okay, this is your gait, this is your belt of determination. Why don't you get up and go?
Right.
Then it wouldn't have had the same effect, because the reason I shared that was because it inspired me and I felt full of this determination for my own self from that class that I had discussed in the morning and had thought about and meditated with. And so I was full with that. And then when I shared with her, it had such more of an impact. So if I'm practicing in my own life to keep myself in that energy of positivity and in that energy of appreciation for everything that I have, everything that I'm doing, as you said, even the dark times, they all have something to teach me. I grow, I learn, I feel more connected, if I have that sense of appreciation and keep that as part of my efforts spiritually in my life, then my ability to encourage others is really going to have that much more power behind it. So I absolutely agree with you. And we need, of course, to feel appreciated and encouraged from people and situations outside of ourselves. But really, like you said, I could have the best situation coming to me and I can feel completely not appreciated at all if I don't have the right energy and the right awareness of who I am inside, what my goal is, and what my role is in this world. One time I was talking with a manager at a clinic I was working, and she was having some frustration because she was feeling like she always had to take the high road with her colleagues. Like, how come I'm always the one who's to be the bigger person? How come no one else can ever be the bigger person and give a little? And I was sharing, but because you're spiritually aware, it's our responsibility. So as a spiritually aware person, I have that responsibility to be that bigger person, to keep that fullness within myself and to share that with others. And if I know how to do that, then I can really feel actually uplifted with my own role as well, and not feeling like, oh, I always have to give, I always have to, accommodate everything. Right? It comes from a place of empowerment, of wanting to help and to cooperate and to share that feeling with other people. So yeah, we really, it's such an important, especially at this time when we aren't together necessarily, or if we are, there's this layer of stress over that. And when people get into that place of stress, to be able to appreciate the things around them when so many things seem to be taken away by the restrictions of COVID, for example, if you're relying on those external things to keep you feeling appreciative, your level of appreciation and encouragement will go down because your source of that has gone down. So we, as spiritual people, and spiritual practitioners, so to say, need to figure out how to find those things within ourselves and within our spiritual practice, and within our community, rather than on external things, because that will fluctuate up and down. And I think that's happening so much for so many people that we aren't getting the same encouragement from people that we normally might, because they can't feel that for themselves with everything that's happening in the world. So spiritual practice is like triply, quadruply important at this time for us to be okay, not just doubly, but triply or quadruply important.
So true, so true. I was thinking, Merrillyn, the second thing also is to understand that we need to recognize the person who around us, all the people around us, for who they are. That now that we are practitioners of Raj Yoga meditation, from that point of view, what I have realized, and I'm sure I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that too, is that now we see each person on this planet as a soul, as a spirit, as a life form, as energy, as a child of God. That is whole, complete, full, perfect, truly. Yeah. Although that person may have forgotten his or her true state of being, but truly deep inside, at the core of his existence, his or her existence, is this beautiful soul that is filled with all the beautiful things that God filled in it. In a way, we say that man was created as an image of God, and that's exactly how each soul is. And so when we begin to understand that, then we begin to have appreciation for everyone around us, right? What do you think, Merrillyn?
Yes, absolutely. I think when situations are challenging or we're going through something, it's sometimes hard for us to stay connected to our own core values and our own core being. That being of light that's inside kind of gets dimmed a little bit by the stressors of life or whatever's happening. And so if I can make my effort to always see the ones in front of me as this whole complete being and not the problem, it is really, really helpful for them and for me. I mean, it allows us to connect in a deeper way. And that upliftment actually comes from that connection, right? It's not the words I say or the things I do, but it's that feeling of kindred spirit that feeling of someone who understands me, someone who's taken an interest in who I really am, not in just the problem. You know, in medical terms, we would say not just the diagnosis. They're not only a diagnosis, but they are this beautiful spiritual being filled with peace and love and happiness. Perhaps it's dimmed a bit with pain and suffering that they've been going through.
True.
But if I can hold on to that image and relate to them from that perspective, it really can shift a lot for their awareness. And it also keeps me in the right state of mind as well. So it's a very beautiful thing to think about each one as that soul, that deeper being. And it makes us connected too. I mean, it means we're all brothers and sisters, right? We're all from the same place. And that no matter where you might come from, your background, my background, what language you speak, you know, doesn't matter. We're all the same inside. We have the same spiritual DNA, so to speak, of
Right.
these
You're all
beautiful
children of
qualities. And we're all children of one God. Absolutely. We come from the same source, or made in the image of the same source. Yeah.
So if I have this kind of, sometimes we do have a lot of love among our own brothers and sisters whom we are related with blood.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then we tend to appreciate them sometimes more than people in the world. But if we start having this feeling that the entire world, the entire planet is one family, and we are all one, yeah, that sense of interconnectedness. And I have been uh, almost enchanted by quantum physics, and I know from the quantum physics point of view to, you know, at the core of all matter, at the core of everything that you can see in the physical world is energy, which those people call it, the physicists call it as a quantum field, where we are totally connected. This whole concept of inseparability.
Mhm.
So if I'm not appreciating others, somewhere I'm not appreciating myself.
Right. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah.
And so unless I appreciate myself also, the other way around, unless I begin to truly appreciate myself as a child of God that is full, complete, whole, perfect, that has been created as an image of God himself, and who is loved by God, who is taken care of by God. God really, really loves me. You know, that kind of feeling, that sense of belonging. If I don't have that, then I can't transmit that sense of belonging and feeling and love and kindness and appreciation to others as well, right?
Mm.
And I was thinking that, you know, the third part that I was thinking of was that, you know, in science we say that nature abhors vacuum or abhors emptiness. And so if there is emptiness within, it will be filled with something. And so what I'm trying to work on in my own spiritual practice is that if there is any emptiness within, for whatever reason, there is a source that I can tap into to fill myself, you know, because see, the desire for appreciation, the desire for recognition, like I said earlier, I feel it's very innate for all of us. We all are desiring that. But instead of me hoping that somebody else will appreciate me, yeah, which doesn't happen, you know, so it almost, you know, many times it can happen, but it may be inadequate or maybe completely missing in action. Yeah, and then we are left in that interaction so empty, you know, emptier than we were earlier. You know, it's almost like an interaction between, I don't want to use the word beggar, but it is really almost like that, or empty, two empty vessels colliding with each other, creating more emptiness. Yes, that's what ends up happening. And what I'm realizing is that if I can connect to the ultimate source of energy, God, the supreme energy, through Raj Yoga meditation, we have learned that, then I can fill myself with all the appreciation I need, because God truly appreciates each one of us. And we sometimes fail to recognize that because we get so caught up in our own drama, our own ideas, our own beliefs. But if we can let go of all of those, all that chatter, all that clutter, then in that quiet space we can understand the link and the energy that is flowing from God, we can tap into that, and that can fill ourselves. And if the vessel inside is full, it's not empty, then I go from being a beggar to a giver, to a donor. A very senior meditation teacher of the Raj Yoga, Brahma Kumari's Raj Yoga meditation, once said, I love these two words that she uses very often, going from being a consumer to a contributor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I am full, I don't need appreciation from anyone really. Because every day in the morning, if I sit in meditation and I look at God, I create that kind of connection with God where I feel his appreciation flowing into me. I am full. Now I can give to everyone. I don't need it from anyone. Yeah, what do
Yeah.
you think, Merrillyn, about that?
Yeah, I think, that fullness really can transform situation that you're in. And when you're talking, it was reminding me of a situation I had when I first started practicing Raj Yoga meditation. I was new, maybe a year or two I'd been practicing, and I was still kind of new to vegetarian diet. I had just changed the way and cooking for myself. I was really focusing on trying to fill the food I cook with energy and God's love and all those things. So I was really working with that and didn't want to eat other people's food or outside for a while to see, sort of experimenting. How does this, work for me? So anyway, I was in school at that time. I practiced something called integrative manual therapy. And so every 3 months, I would go for a week to Connecticut, and I would have to stay in the student housing there. And so I picked my roommate very specifically, of someone who sleeps early and has a nice character. Like, I'd become friends with her. So I picked my person I shared the room with, but we had to share a kitchen. And I'm sharing a kitchen with a lot of other people who are not vegetarian, who don't have the same awareness. And I actually, because I didn't want the meat on my, this is going to sound strange for someone who's not vegetarian, but I didn't want the meat on my pans that I was cooking with. So I brought my own pans with me. And I felt this was very brave, because I am not one who likes to rock the boat like that. And so I was feeling a little vulnerable and a little like people were judging me. Oh, she's having pans. Our pans aren't good enough for her, and I didn't want to eat with them. So I wouldn't eat the food. And I tried to be so nice about it. But, there was some judgment. Specifically, one person was really a little bit making comments and giving me a hard time about it. And so I remember one night, sitting in my room, and I was, just reading a spiritual thing to try to uplift myself, because I was feeling a little bit, a little bit judged. And in that spiritual reading, it said, never separate yourself from others. And what I realized was that me feeling judged was preventing me from sharing what I knew and sharing my gifts with them. And that I was separating myself because I was feeling attacked. But that wasn't allowing me to share my own sense of fullness from my spiritual practice with them, right? So I had to really go beyond that. So that reading just gave me courage. And so I went back in the kitchen, I sat down, I started talking with people, because they're actually quite spiritually minded in this kind of field. It's energy work. So people, they do have spiritual awareness. And so started sharing with them a little bit about the soul and the energy of the soul and the effect the food has on the soul, just sharing, from my own experience. And so they were listening and they were happy. And then the next day I said, I get up early in the morning and I meditate. Would anyone like to join me? So I would get up at 5, because I wanted to be sort of, be able to invite people. So I got up at 5, and one or two of my colleagues came and meditated with me at 5 in the morning. So we created this more beautiful atmosphere in the room, and then, or in the whole housing. And then one night I said, what? We haven't really been able to sit and eat together. Why don't I cook dinner for everyone? I'll cook a beautiful meal for everyone. And I put so much love in that meal. And I thought I was feeling so connected, because I was holding on, I felt like, to my connection with God, to feel sustained while I was feeling unsustained around me, judged around me. So I felt so connected. I put all of that connection, all of that love, all of that support, because I knew at that point that if I can withstand this, then I know that I belong to God. And I know that I need to practice this for my own self, for my own soul. So I put all of that feeling into the food. And that night we're sitting and eating the meal. And it was a simple meal, chickpeas and rice. I mean, it was nothing dramatic at all. But the one who giving me such a hard time, he just loved this food so much. He was going on and on about it. How do I make this food for myself? I feel so nourished by what you've cooked, and just really, really appreciating. Because of that exchange of energy, because of me sharing myself and what I knew with them, he and I actually became friends. And he started talking to me, and he actually confided to me that, Merrillyn, the reason why I was giving you such a hard time in the beginning was because I was so jealous that you had that much strength to be able to do what you were doing, and knowing that I wouldn't have that much strength and determination to do what you were doing. So the total turnaround of relationship, just from sharing energetically, not really saying much, but really just pouring that love and sharing who I am with them, was such a lesson for me in the beginning about the power of God's love and the power of my connection with the Supreme and the ability to share that with others. So that's what I feel like encouragement and appreciation is, because I was able to appreciate them and share with them how I was feeling that connection and love from the divine. And then in return, you get it back most of the time, right? And maybe not always, but in that case, I did get it back. And it was really wonderful to have that immediate feedback of how what I was feeling inside was helping. But if I hadn't had my spiritual practice, it wouldn't have been possible. When I think about this gentleman saying, I felt just, that I would never be able to do what you were doing.
Yeah.
I don't think I never would either if I hadn't had my meditation practice and my spiritual practice to keep me in that sense of wonder and fullness and being loved and being appreciated. So I totally understand what you're saying about that need for us to do that. And, having that experience in my life really was a good reminder for me to that the best interactions, the deepest relationships are going to be formed if I share my full self with the other person and show that interest. So that's very lovely. So thank you for the opportunity to remember that story.
Yeah. No, that was beautiful story. Yeah, I'm sure we loved it all. Yeah, I loved it. And I agree with you. Sometimes we get the feedback right away, and sometimes it doesn't come right away. But irrespective, it doesn't matter. You feel so full. So you get this internal feedback, this feeling of, the flow that's constantly happening. And in fact, it's an overflowing flow. It's just it almost inundates you. And
Yes.
so then it doesn't matter what's coming from out there. And the moment what I am realizing, and you can kind of say more on this if you like, but what I'm realizing is that even though the flow is happening, if I forget it, is when I start to seek for it out there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
So all I need to do is to remind myself every day, every moment that that conduit is intact. The flow is happening. I am full. I just have to keep giving. I don't have to worry about any feedback from anywhere, right? And I was thinking, Michelle, would you like to say something, or is this the right time for you to ask anything, or if you want to ask or say?
Well, thank you. I have to say your anecdotes are so strong. You answered all my questions with your anecdotes. I'm not kidding you. So I just first I want to say how lucky your patients are, because I know as formerly as a practitioner, I'm still working, but I'm not in per se the healthcare field, that spirituality, and I was a spiritual person, but I wasn't studying with the Brahma Kumaris when I was practicing, but I had the taste of the spirituality when I was treating some of my patients. And by you speaking about it, both of you, and you particularly, Merrillyn, when you talked about that person in the parallel bars, I had similar that feeling of wanting to empower them with all my heart, and knowing I couldn't do it alone. I always called my buddy with me. I called it the happy triad: the patient, myself, and the spirit. When we worked together, it was miraculous. The toughest patients, where other people would go, it'll never get better, I knew. I used to say, give me 2 weeks. 2 weeks, but you had to pick your patient. They were compliant and they believed also. I would have a talk with them. Let's work together with the spirit. And I would, talk about that happy triad. It was incredible how, and what you said, Shvetank, when you connected. I wasn't even trained, but that's why I'm so glad to be part of the Brahma Kumaris, because now I'm understanding those tastes that I had are now being filled with knowledge, as opposed to, just those instincts I had. So your stories, your anecdotes, they're not stories, they're actual, what's really happened to you is incredible. So you've answered my questions. And if anyone has questions, please put it in the chat. The only thing, the key words that you talk about, both of you touched on the same thing, the inseparability. That's the key. You use the term quantum physics and the energy, and both of you talk about that. If you see others as you see yourself, that you use the term DNA with the spirit, that's it. I mean, but to hold on to that, and you two, what's incredible is you've both held on to that for so long. You're sustaining it. It seems every moment of your day. That's the challenge, to how long can you hold on to that? Because the longer you hold on to it, the more you're able to give it out and share with others. And that's where the practice comes in, that fine tuning, that alignment that you spoke of. So for me, it tells me, because I always say I'm a toddler at this. I have a lot more work to do, but I see you two and I see the rewards that are coming once you have that power. And I could feel the power from you. So thank you so much for your words. Wow.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
Help.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's so sweet of you. Yeah. Now we are all on a spiritual journey, and each one, can gallop at any time. So you don't think that you're a toddler, and you can go very fast too. It's
High jumps are in order. The express elevator you can jump on. I was just thinking as you were sharing, Michelle, that for me, I've spent many years trying to figure out the key to maintaining that connection in my work. And I think this is true for anyone who's out there in a job interacting with a lot of people. And for me, the keys really to maintaining that connection is, one, my personal practice that I do every day. If I don't maintain that, if I don't connect every day, then it becomes much harder for me to maintain my energy to be present with other people, because I'm not full, essentially, with everything we just said. And the way I don't lose that fullness through the day, because fatigue sets in, I see a lot of patients, I'm on the computer all day long, I'm interacting with so many different energies. But the key is to stay in the present moment. I can't think about what happened with the last patient. I can't project or worry about what's coming up. I can't think about how many patients I have left to see and how much paperwork there is and the pile of this and that, because that immediately, if my thoughts go there, the connection is gone. Mm-hmm. So I have to be very present. Who am I? I'm with this one. This is my sister or brother's soul. They're with me. I'm there to help them with their bodies today and help them with keeping them motivated to heal and motivated to keep on program. And I have to just be with them and hear what it is they need and give them that. And if I do that and I keep that connection with me and I just think me, just like you said, the triad, I love that image. For me, it's me and my companion. God is with me. And every time I treat, I do a lot of manual therapy work. Before I put my hands on someone, I'm remembering the Supreme. And that energy is there with me when I treat, and that energy works miracles. And actually, I gain a lot of energy and power from that as well. So that practice of being completely present with them and never letting go and remembering who's really doing the healing, right? I'm just a facilitator. That's it. I'm not the one doing the healing. The person actually is healing themselves, and the energy of the source is allowing that to happen. So if I keep that, then I'm that awareness that I'm in the magic all day long. The magic is there. The minute I let go of that and the wasteful thoughts come, then I lose that magic and it becomes work again.
I had just got a question. It ties into what you're saying on a practical level, because everyone is pulled in so many directions in the day. It's good I'm here. I always say, God always knows when I need this, because I had a day like that today. I have a lot of different demands, if you will. Talk about that day when you're that focused. In other words, I had that day where, while you're focused on one project, your phone is ringing. I realize I have another project. Talk about what the day looks like when you are that focused. Does the work get done faster and more efficiently when you are focused, as opposed to the so-called multitasking, and I'm going to answer the phone and I'm going to treat you at the same time, and I'm going to worry about that other patient, who I have to treat in an hour? What does the day look like when you're more mindful versus that so-called multitasking that most people think work?
So for me, I don't know about Shvetank's days, but for me, that day flows actually. And what I find, it is magical that I don't have to find time to get everything done, that actually time appears so that I can get everything done. So if I'm in the right mindset, I'm in that connection, it is like a connectedness, like Shvetank was saying earlier, how we're all part of one energy, right? We are all made of the same stuff, so to speak. So if I remember that, then I know that I'm in line with whatever drama is happening in that moment, in that day, and I will flow through it. And there's no resistance and the things get done. And even if something doesn't get done, I don't feel bad about that. I know that I've got tomorrow, the next day it will come. Time will open up later in the week for me to finish that pile of notes or make those phone calls or whatever. But I feel like it's a flow. I feel like, and also interestingly, I find my patients are happier and everybody's feeling better when I'm in that kind of space. It's really interesting how everyone gets better at the same time, and a lot of it has to do with like what I'm feeling inside myself. Of course it has to do with what they're doing as well, but I just noticed this pattern that when I'm in the right space and I'm in that connected state with the source, that everybody feels better. And if they don't feel better when they come in, wow, do they feel better when they leave? And I don't feel it has anything to do with me. And I was just thinking about appreciation earlier, and appreciating, and I think holding that awareness of being in the flow and knowing that I'm not the one who's actually doing the healing, it keeps you in a place of humility. And I think that that is another key for really and truly appreciating and being in the magic of life, is the feeling of humility, that I'm just an instrument, that this is what's going to happen. It's happening through me, but it's not because of me. It's really something higher. And how fortunate am I to be able to have this awareness and to share that with others. And that sense of humble wonder, so to speak, is also part of appreciation and encouragement. And, patients and families and people that you are in connection with, anyone you're in working with, will feel that from you. And so it's a very wonderful place to work from. And, but it does take some efforts to be able to stay there. It doesn't happen by itself. We have to make that effort. Yeah.
Right.
I just want to say, before I answer this question, I just want to go back a little bit into what you had mentioned earlier, Michelle, about the, many times we want to do it, but we are not able to do it, and so on and so forth. See, one of the very important things to understand is that there's ignorance, and then there's knowledge. The knowledge is empowering. Ignorance is something that is disempowering. And so if I understand why I need to do this, then automatically I'll want to do it. So this creating this energy of appreciation for ourselves and for others around us is actually very healing. If you go into this whole thing of positive psychology, which boomed, really, the research in positive psychology really reached its peak in 1990s to 2000, and still now you see so many papers out there. If you go into PubMed, that repository of all the research, you put gratitude, you put positive psychology, all of these things, it's very interconnected, all of these things, and you find that there is just innumerable papers now of how it affects the body. If you are even a little bit appreciative, like people are saying, every week you think of a new reason to be appreciative of, for yourself, for your family, for people around you, nature, etc. Create gratitude jars, this, that. Even small things like this, even state gratitude or state appreciation or state positive psychology that you're practicing has tremendous effect. They're seeing through functional MRI the kind of changes that are happening in the brain. So initially functionally, but then structural changes are happening in the brain, documented. Yeah, so once we begin to understand, yeah, that is this kind of energy that we create is helpful for us. It keeps us healthy. It actually keeps us from aging. It increase our longevity. Yeah, so the telomere is lengthening, and all of that you can look up. I don't want to go too scientific. I don't know what's the audience here, but this is all now documented that if I remain positive, if I remain appreciative, it's going to help me.
Mhm.
So end of the story, sort of,
Oh,
that,
that's great.
yeah, that I
I think
have,
science is catching up with spirituality. I think, they always say I always thought spirituality was way ahead of the game for centuries,
yeah,
for thousands of years. And now science is finally figuring it out and trying to
yes,
catch up. So hopefully soon we'll see that, as you say, that knowledge, you have the knowledge, but we're hoping that the rest, that's why you're here and we appreciate it. You're giving that knowledge.
yeah, thank you, Michelle. Yes, so true. So see, now coming back to your question, the second one, the question who somebody I guess asked about, this remaining focus, remaining centered versus multitasking. I may differ from other yogis maybe in a way, but that actually the human soul, is designed for multitasking, actually. So in a way, some researchers are saying that at one point you can do only one thing, but actually no, you can do multiple things, and this is now proven. I think there's something called as parallel processing. So there's serial processing and there's parallel processing, and this is a term that is used by IT people and even in electronics and so on and so forth. So what is this? And even actually in business and throughput, in OR throughput, they're talking about parallel processing. And so this term has become a buzzword now everywhere. But what it really means is that, when we are in the, really speaking, there are two dimensions of our existence. And I say this every time because I say this to remind myself that there is this physical dimension where I see myself as this body, the name, and all the other labels and identities. And then there is this spiritual dimension of my existence where I exist as a spirit, as a soul, as a life form, as energy. Yeah. And so in this physical dimension, there are two rules or laws in this physical dimension. One is limitedness. Everything is limited. Yeah, because you can only run so fast, you can only jump so high, you can only dive so deep, you can only eat so much, or you can only not eat so much, you can only sleep so little or so much, and so on and so forth. There's always limitedness. And the second thing, the second rule here is change. So everything is changing in this dimension. And that's why we have fear. That's why we have anxiety, because of two reasons, these two reasons. But in this dimension, everything is constant. Here, I, the soul, exists as an eternal life form.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I immediately, as soon as I shift my consciousness from my physical dimension of my existence to the spiritual dimension of my existence, I enter into this state of almost invincibility, because I, the soul, am energy, no body, no physical form, so I can never die. I'm immortal, I'm unlimited, I have everything, and I am everything.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm connected to everything, and I'm connected to the source as well, to God himself. And so when we understand these dynamics, yes, then we begin to experience capacity that is unlimited, that's infinite.
Mhm. Mhm.
We can do so many different things. Human mind is capable of the most amazing things at the same time. But what
Mhm.
happens is we don't experience that consciousness. We don't enter into that domain. We don't enter into that dimension. And that's why we are not able to do all that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if you understand from quantum physics point of view too, as you go into the quantum field, actually there is no time. When you look at the quantum time, the max, the Planck time, it is that fraction of a second. And actually, when they were measuring, they found there's no time. So time ceases to exist. So you become timeless.
Mhm.
So if you become timeless, you can do anything.
Mhm.
And what Merrillyn was saying too, when you are in that meditative state, you actually create time.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's an interesting concept in itself. And so
Mhm.
if you're creating time, you can do multitasking. And you can do it in such efficiency, such profound creativity that you can create in that multitasking, that it won't become stressful, and you will be able to do everything that you need to do for yourself. Make sense?
Yes, it does. I think that's the point, that it's not stressful and that time is linear when you're in the so-called limited world. Time is
Thank you.
linear as opposed to it's a web. To me, time, when you're in meditation, it's a web. You can see front, back, sideways. That's really where, but only in a meditative state.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I usually don't talk about about time that much. Yeah, like you said, linear and the web, because I see many times I lose people. I
Mhm.
don't really get it. But thank you for saying that. Yes.
Mhm.
So in this linearity of time, yeah, we get lost, we get stuck, because we
Mhm.
know that from childhood to death, yeah,
Right,
and we have to cram everything in
right.
this. And
And that's why
here,
we have fear. That's where the fear, because we think there's an end. You know
there's
where I
an,
read that first?
yeah.
Not from Einstein.
Oh, is that
So
right?
Einstein said it, and then I confirmed it with the Brahma Kumaris.
Awesome, awesome.
So it's all this, it's the same. It's who we are. You're delightful, both of you. Eric, are there any questions?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay, I think that everyone is pondering because this was very, very. I want to ask Marilyn one more question
Sure.
because it sounded like when you were first at that weekend class, you were early on in your practice.
Yes.
And you had this revelation. I call it a revelation. I don't know. For me, it would be a revelation that I'm going to
It was a
try this.
revelation to
It's
the
an
point where I still
experiment.
remember it 10 years later.
Right,
That's
exactly. And you
yeah.
said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to be loving and I'm going to cook and I'm going to explain. And you had immediate results and they've taken you into the future that 10 years later. I mean, I have had moments like that. I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I have memory of certain
Yeah.
things like you speak of. Okay, so now we're talking fast forward. I'm sorry, Shvetank, that I'm going to talk about linear time, but you're now 10 years ahead. Can you imagine that same thing happening again? Are there moments where you lose your footing and you do have that insecurity because of your practice, or are you? It sounds like you always can find that fullness. And as I remember you had mentioned earlier, once you connect, those circumstances you had early on are almost difficult to have because the fullness is there, the knowledge is there, the spirit is there, and that person who took you down for a little while and made you think about, second guess yourself, did some mind work on you. Would you still be in that position today? I know anyone can turn, but do you feel through time and practice that's changed?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my stability is a lot better for sure. I mean, I think that changes all the time. But I do think that what happens as I grow spiritually too is that the challenges become a bit more,
Yeah,
and it's no longer just one person who shakes me. Like one person's view of me can't shake me now. Like I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, I know why.
I love it.
However, situations still, like I can talk about this COVID situation for myself because, I working in healthcare, we once COVID hit in Massachusetts and we were in lockdown, basically, I still had to go to work. I had to go out there. They shut down the clinic, but I was in the hospital and I was working with COVID patients every day. And because of that, and to protect the center, so I live in the center in Boston, but to protect the center, I had to isolate myself during that time. And it was from the middle of March until June 1st that I was really not able to participate in the same way that I had in the center. And of course, things changed. because of we weren't having the public come, and there were very limited practitioners here to help, and people to come and help run the center. And so even those who lived with me in the center were having to take on more responsibility because I wasn't available. And literally I had my doors closed, and I didn't even go to class in the morning. I didn't cook with them. I didn't talk with them except by phone. I had a little table outside my door. They would leave, sometimes they cook something, they'd leave it for me or my mail, and I would just open the door and get it and come back, and I didn't interact. And so for me, that was that same kind of challenge, right? It was all of the supports that I had become accustomed to having in my spiritual practice to keep me on track were suddenly taken away. And it became up to just me to maintain my practice and to maintain the things that I do to help me stay in that connection. And then also my timetable, I was working until 10:30 at night. I was going, having to be on the computer all the time with Zoom calls. I wasn't used to all of that. And so it really threw me, actually, and it took me a little time to readjust. However, based on my experience from the past, I knew that if I could hold on to what I knew to be true in myself, that I would make it through that and I would be okay. And actually that experience and time by myself and having to maintain the practices alone without the support of other people and other yogis with me, it was really challenging, but also I feel like I have grown in my practice and in my stability. Like I've taken a high jump because of that. So I think when we think, oh, even the negative things, we can appreciate those, is how much I appreciate that time in lockdown by myself, because it forced me to be self-reliant in a way that I hadn't had to do before. So yes, definitely those challenges still come. They're just in a different way, and they open up different things in me than they did back then. But still, it's a growth process. It's a journey,
Right.
It's a
The
journey.
more mature you get, the bigger the issues you're dealing with, which thank you for illustrating that. That's an incredible illustration.
However, when you come out on the other side of it, you have so much more appreciation for yourself.
I can feel the wind underneath you.
Yeah,
you rose right up. Well, let's talk a little bit about the pandemic, and I want to ask you, Shvetank, in terms of your interactions, how has that changed with your patients in terms of the strength that you bring, with your practice? Has it changed now? Merrillyn has talked about that. It's clear from your stories how you've done this growth through this pandemic. How have you been able to translate that to your, if you will, bedside manner? Has it changed a little bit, or are you you don't notice the difference?
Well, it has been a process. This past several years, I have worked on trying to make myself more available, not physically, not necessarily just physically, spiritually for my patients. And many times we have very little time to talk and interact with the patients, just 1 or 2 minutes, 3 minutes before the patient is rolled back into the operating room. And most of these surgeries are real tough surgeries, big surgeries. And many times we know that the outcome will not be really good. And, many times we can't even assure that the patient may survive. But what I'm realizing is that, this is a totally different topic, and I don't think we have that much time for that, but the fear of death, and I saw in general, these patients have a very realistic fear of death because the surgeon has already talked to them in statistics, so the chances of death for 40%, the chances of stroke 60%, the chances of this heart attack on the table and not even making out of the operating room is 20%, and so on and so forth. So they already have that information. And now and with COVID-19, of course, that was highlighted, the whole fear of death. But what I'm realizing is that the more I process my own fear of death, the more I can, even without this words, without saying anything, by non-verbal communication, I can somehow allay their anxiety, their fear of death. And I felt that. And so even with simple statements, or many times with just saying nothing, I can put a hand on their shoulder, it'll be all right. Yeah, it'll be all right. And so in a way, I find that they get it because I find them calming down. So in a way, somewhere you think of it, are we really ready for all of this thing to happen? Most of the times we think, even if it's COVID-19, it's somebody else and somebody else is dying. Yeah, we feel for them. There is compassion. There is, I'm sure, for most people, there's this feeling of pity and empathy and sympathy and compassion, all of those things. But truly speaking, seeing ourselves there, this could happen to us too. But while it is happening, am I afraid? Am I in fear? Yeah. And if I am in fear, how can I fix other people's fear? So I'm realizing that. And I have worked very hard in processing this fear for myself. And I found it automatically spills over to
Wow. Wow.
them.
Both of you. Wow. Well,
Oh,
we are
thank you.
winding. Wow. All I can say, I hope everyone else, let's hear you out there. Wow. I think this is a wow moment. Both of you have been
Oh,
wow.
sweet.
I'm wowed. So we're winding down, and I
Yeah.
believe, Merrillyn, you have agreed to do a commentary, and we're gonna tap into you too, because your vibrations,
Oh,
you're gonna have to help Merrillyn and all of us because they're so strong. So if you wouldn't mind bringing us to a commentary, and then everyone stick around because I have just a few announcements before we shut down. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
Wow,
Michelle.
wow, wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not
So
just
sweet of you.
wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very lovely. Thank you so much. So I gently allow my mind to settle into a place of silence, a place of stillness. Letting go of my roles and responsibilities in the world. Letting go of past struggles or future worries. Stepping out of the world for a moment into that timeless awareness of myself as a soul. An awareness where I am completely full and constantly connected to Source. Feeling as I remember the Source, the Supreme Being, my own special gifts of peace and love, happiness and determination just emerge from deep within. That I am this timeless, eternal container of everything positive, everything light, everything healing. Appreciating myself, appreciating the one who sustains me, the divine, feeling his love and appreciation for my unique contributions in the world. I allow that fullness to flow through me, feeling the vibrations of peace, of love, and of wonder as they flow through me and out into the world. I appreciate so deeply my experience of peace, my experience of love, my experience of connection. Filling myself with the awareness of these qualities. So that even as I, the soul, come back to the awareness of my role, of my body, of time around me, I bring with me all that appreciation and love to share with each one that I connect with. This is my gift. This is my role. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. I just want to thank the Supreme Source for sending the prescription tonight of both of you. We had a therapist and an anesthesiologist. He did a good job selecting. We all needed it. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. And thank you for your wonderful commentary. Thank you both for your words, for your thoughts, for your deeds, for your spirit.